So hello everyone. We are getting back now to continue with our MoodleMoot Croatia for the 12th time. It's 2:00 and now we are having two invited lectures, again on English. So this is why I'm speaking English now.
Can you hear me okay, Sandra?
Yeah, I can hear you greatly, Jessica. Thank you. So I would like to introduce our next speaker, which is Jessica Gramp. She is Moodle Academy Manager from the Moodle org. Well, Jessica has extensive professional experience in education technology, and she has been working at the, I would say, several universities, and University College London was the one where we met for the first time, but she was at the University of Edinburgh and some universities in Australia. And somehow, now when she's Moodle org, we came back together again, joining again for another project. And I'm very happy that Jessica is here with us today. She will be talking about the new project, which is OpenDigCompEdu, and also something about Moodle Academy, which I'm certain it's very interesting to all of us working with Moodle. I'm also very happy that we have already one person here in Srce who finished Moodle education training, or METS, how it's called. So we are advanced, but well, I'll leave floor to Jessica to explain everything about it. So Jessica, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Great. And you can see my slides. Excellent.
Yeah.
So I'll be discussing our OpenDigCompEdu project, and as Sandra mentioned, I'll talk a bit about Moodle Academy and where that fits in a moment as well. So if you want further information about the project, you can go to OpenDigCompEdu.eu, and we'll be adding further information to that site. But there's also a contact form on there. So I am involved in the project, but if I'm unable to answer your questions, there's also a contact form on that site that you can use to ask your questions. Okay, so I'm the Moodle Academy Manager, and I joined Moodle HQ in July last year, and we soon after that point launched the Moodle Academy, so it's quite a new product. But I've been developing and supporting Moodle since 2004, and I've got experience as a learner as well. So I've studied 2 masters online and also used learning management systems in a blended form during my undergraduate degree. Before I joined Moodle, I was the University of Edinburgh online course production service operations manager, and I ran a consultancy business in digital education training and project management before that. I spent 12 years at the University College London, which is where I initially met Sandra on the other project she mentioned, and I was a learning technologist and e-learning advisor at UCL. And I started my journey with Moodle when I graduated from university and became a learning technologist and Moodle developer at Somerville House, which is a school in Brisbane in Australia. So that was back in 2004. So now I'm looking after Moodle Academy. We have a team of 5 of us, and we're developing free short courses for the Moodle community. So Moodle Academy is the learning hub for the global Moodle community. And its goals are quite well aligned with this project, Open Digital Competences Training for School Educators. Before I talk about the project, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about Moodle Academy. So the content that we're developing on the site is all open. So we're using the CC BY Open Creative Commons license, and we enable people who complete our courses to receive a badge. And we also have a number of programs now available, which is made up of short courses, and you can purchase a certificate for a small fee. So if you'd like to have a look at Moodle Academy, you can go there in your web browser, moodle.academy. And I'll talk more about that in a moment, but I'm going to let you know a bit about the project that we're working on and how it aligns with our Moodle Academy. So it's an Erasmus Plus strategic partnership which is continuing on until 2024, and we've shortened it to OpenDigCompEdu. Moodle is one of 7 partners, so we are working with the Department of Education of Catalonia, Spain, and the Politehnica University of Timișoara in Romania, the Timis County School Inspectorate in Romania, and the University of Piraeus Research Centre in Greece, as well as the University Computing Centre of University of Zagreb, or SRCE for short, and also a Moodle partner, eFactor, in Norway. And here is a screenshot of our last project meeting, where we were all online to start discussing the project. So the project aims to accelerate the digital competences of educators in school education from our partner countries, so Spain, Romania, Croatia, Greece and Norway, towards the sustainable adoption of more online and blended approaches in education through the use of open educational technologies and open education principles. And this project addresses the EU's Digital Education Action Plan, Action 3, which promotes multilingualism and cultural diversity in a globalised market and prevents the exclusion of pupils in disadvantaged situations. The objectives are to enhance the uptake of open education practices, resources and open digital tools for delivering competence-based teaching, to create and validate an understanding of sustainability in education within the framework for open and digital competences for educators, to improve the achievement and recognition of digital competences for education. And we're doing this through an e-portfolio and also formal learning. So we're going to be developing a framework for an OpenDigCompEdu e-portfolio, and we'll also be developing courses for educators in this project. And we'll be introducing a microcredential and open badges in order to certify the school partners in the partner countries. So to improve and validate the digital competences of the project, we will develop courses and incorporate a microcredential. And the courses are going to be formed within 3 learning pathways. So we have a pathway for teachers, a pathway for instructional designers, and another for school leaders and administrators. And we'll be building an experts group for DigCompEdu validation. The 6 courses that we'll be developing include Learn Moodle Basics, and we've actually been running something similar for a while now. So we'll be incorporating a lot of the existing materials into this and building upon them. I will talk more about that in a moment. We'll also be covering teaching with open digital tools, new assessment models, open digital education ecosystem, diversity and inclusion in education, and climate change in education. So the training program will be enable the partners to adapt the training to suit their local context, and they'll be able to issue microcredentials to their local participants. So the project will enable us to enhance collaboration between educators, learners, school leaders, school institutions with education providers, universities, and companies developing open digital tools. The OpenDigCompEdu e-portfolio model and criteria will involve creating a framework for educators that will allow them to evaluate and showcase their digital competence. And you may recognise these 6 areas that we'll be meeting, which align to the DigCompEdu framework. So that's professional engagement, digital resources, teaching and learning, assessment, empowering learners, and facilitating learners' digital competence. So that's where the project obviously gets its name from. And the framework organises educators' professional, pedagogic, and learners' competences into these 6 areas. Moodle Academy courses actually already map to these same competences. And we also have a Moodle Educator certification, which includes 6 courses that align directly to these 6 areas of the DigCompEdu framework. So we're already very familiar with this framework in Moodle Academy and in Moodle more generally. With the OpenDigCompEdu project, we aim to address more open educational software and technologies other than Moodle within this framework and create courses that will be freely available to educators and will help them build their digital competences. So the project will be based in part on some of the existing courses in Moodle Academy, as I mentioned, and these are already being offered to the community. But they'll be enhanced and enriched to cover more digital technologies than Moodle. The Moodle Academy learning pathways are split into 3, but really the first one is the only one that's got a lot of relevance to this project in particular. So the Moodle Educator pathway is for instructional designers and educators and is geared towards learning how to use Moodle to teach, assess, and communicate with your students. The second 2 pathways, the Moodle Administrative Learning Pathway, is about how to manage and customize your Moodle site from a technical perspective. So it shouldn't be confused with the school leaders and administrators learning pathway of this project. That's more aligned with our Moodle Educator pathway. And thirdly, we have a developer learning pathway, which is all about learning how to develop with Moodle. So how to create plugins, how to contribute to Moodle core code, and set up your Moodle development environment. So really it's that first learning pathway that has the most relevance. And in that educator pathway, we've already created and offered a number of webinars and online courses to teach educators how to facilitate Moodle forums, assess in Moodle, undertake learning design, use MoodleNet, incorporate gamification techniques into courses, and teach languages with Moodle. And there are many more courses that have been released already and that are being created all the time. Many of them have webinars. The Moodle Teaching Basics program was actually established about 15 years ago on the Learn Moodle site and has now been broken into shorter courses, so 2 to 3 hours long, and it now forms a new program on Moodle Academy with the same name, Moodle Teaching Basics. You can complete the 5 courses that are incorporated into this program and receive a badge, and you can purchase a certificate as well for a small fee. The Moodle Teaching Basics program covers just the basic knowledge on how to use the learning management system. And our Moodle Teaching Skills program then builds upon that and covers further areas of digital competence, which also aligns with the DigCompEdu framework. So it's expected that some of the content from these courses is going to be incorporated into the training courses for the OpenDigCompEdu project. So both of these programs that I've mentioned, Moodle Teaching Basics and Moodle Teaching Skills, is aimed at beginners and intermediate users. And then once somebody has done their training and is experienced in using Moodle and have had at least a year's teaching experience with Moodle, they can then approach our partners and attain their Moodle Educator Certification, or MEC. So this is for experienced educators, and it's really the pinnacle of the certification process. And it's an international certificate for teaching with Moodle and is available in 8 languages. So we've got it available in Arabic, Chinese, French, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, Catalan, German, Greek, and Italian. But it's very specific to Moodle, so it differs from this project in that the project will develop more general information and certification of educators using all sorts of online tools, just including Moodle. So one new feature that I'd like to let everyone know about, which I'm excited to announce, we just launched this last week on Moodle Academy, is a new content translation tool. So if you go to Moodle Academy and you complete some online training, which takes about an hour, you can then get access to helping us translate our content into different languages. So we've already got some community members who've started to contribute translations, and we expect many more to arrive in the coming weeks and months. So the translation plugin is enabled in the top menu bar in the top right of Moodle. And I'll just show you quickly what it looks like so you can get an idea of how it will work, because I expect that we will be incorporating something like this into the project site where all of our courses will be translated into other languages for this project. So when you enable the translation plugin, you'll see these little translation icons appear on the page. And if you click one of them, you'll be taken to a translation page where you'll be able to see the original content on the left, and you'll be able to add your translated content on the right. And if the content has been updated, it will actually tell you what's changed in what's known as a diff. So you'll be able to see the difference between the original content and what's new, so that then you can make the right changes to the translation. And once you've translated certain areas, you'll see that the icon with the cross, which is saying there's no translation yet, turns into an icon, a green icon with a tick to say, yes, it's been translated and it's up to date as well. It'll alert you if it's out of date. So people who are interested in contributing to Moodle Academy as translators need to be fluent in the translation language and have at least B2 in English proficiency, and also successfully complete this Translate Moodle Academy course, which takes about 1 hour. Once you've successfully completed the course, you'll be assigned the role of translator, and you'll be able to access that plugin and start making translations of our courses. We've had many offers to contribute to translations of our courses so far in many languages, but you'll see that Croatian isn't yet on the list. So if there's anyone here who would like to help, please come into the Translate Moodle Academy course, and once you complete that, you can get started to help us translate the courses on Moodle Academy into Croatian. Apart from that, you can also go to Moodle Academy, and we've got a Get Involved course where you can suggest topic ideas which can be voted by the community. And we use that list to address the most needed content areas to help provide the next courses and webinars that we release on the site. But we also are keen to hear from you about who you would like to hear from, or if you have expertise yourself that you would like to share, you can help us by contributing to webinars and also helping us build courses. And of course, as I just mentioned, you can help us translate Moodle Academy. And lastly, I'd just like to mention that we have MoodleMoot Global 2022 happening face-to-face again in September in Barcelona, Spain, from the 27th to the 29th of September. So we'd love to see as many of you there as possible. So you can go to moodle.com events to find out more about the conference and to register. And we're still taking abstract submissions, so we'd love to hear your presentation proposals as well. So if you can get those submitted to us, I think the deadline's the end of this month. And I'll do my best to answer your questions now if you have any. So if I can't, then as I said, you can go to this OpenDigCompEdu website and ask your questions on the contact form there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for a very nice overview of the project and the work of the Moodle Academy. As I said, maybe I didn't say it quite well, Moodle education certificate. This is MEDS. I'm always confusing with this, but I find it very useful for us here in Srce, because many of the colleagues from the e-learning center had been enrolled and passed the Moodle Bytes and now the MEDS. So it's very valuable for those working in support to teachers using Moodle on digital technologies. The challenge accepted for translation in Croatian. We'll see about that. How we can arrange it. So yeah, well, I will have this on my mind. Maybe just a little. If you can a little bit more explain, for example, if you take like this a course there, how it is demanding for person in the time of hours and obligations, because it's not easy. It's not easy. It takes time, especially MEDS, for example. It takes quite long. But maybe if you can briefly just give more information about that, I'm certain that people will be interested to hear about the workload and how it's actually done.
And that's in terms of the MEC, was it, or the translation course that you mentioned?
MC.
The MEC, yep. Yeah. Okay, so it really what we ask people to do is we put you in contact with a partner, and the partner will run the group through a training program that aligns with the certification program. So it really depends on where you're at in terms of your current understanding of Moodle. In order to enter MEC, you need that 1 year of education experience. And if you're already at a very high level and don't need a lot of training behind that, then you can probably get through the program. I think it's in from 6 weeks and upwards, but it depends how it's structured with the partner that you go with, really. And they will run, some of them will run webinars and things, and it depends really where you're at currently. So I would say anywhere from 6 weeks and upwards to get that completed, but it's at a really high level, so it's really showing that you have a really strong understanding of how to teach with Moodle. So it's not something that you can complete very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. As the project is still it's at the beginning, we actually do not have much to share at the moment regarding the results. So I'm certain that we will organize some webinars or some other presentation where we jointly share the results of the project. This is at the moment the information that the project exists and is ongoing. Certainly, Moodle Conference Global is something of interest to many of us. So, yes, I know the deadline is June 30, so we still have a time to apply. And I don't see that we have questions from the audience in the chat. But I would like to thank you for being with us today and for this presentation, and definitely we will be in touch. So thank you for your time and for joining MoodleMoot Croatia.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope to see some of you at the conference, and I put some links in the chat for those who haven't already been to Moodle Academy.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Now we are coming to our second speaker with us today. This is Rob Lowney from Dublin City University. Let me just see if Rob is with us. Okay, yeah, great. So, hi Rob. Let me hear. Can I hear? Let's say something so I can hear you. I don't see that you have turned on the mic.
Now, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, great. Good. So, hello. Nice to see you. So, Rob is joining us today from the Dublin City University. He's a learning technologist in the Teaching Enhancement Unit. And we managed to get online while he was doing Moodle Munches. And this is how our collaboration started briefly, but I'm very happy that today he's joining us. He's a senior certificate member of the Association for Learning Technology. He works with academic staff to enhance the teaching, learning, and assessment practices on their modules with digital technologies. So basically something similar what we are doing here at eLearning Center. And I'm very interested in his presentation because he will talk about supporting educators' digital competence development through a community initiative. I would say the communities have become quite vivid and present during the pandemic, something which existed before but was, let's say, a little bit forgotten, and now they blossomed during pandemic. But certainly working together, collaborating, exchanging ideas, know-how, certainly can help much more in development of practice than working on your own. So, Rob, please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for that lovely introduction, and thank you for the invite to speak here today. Hopefully you'll all get a little bit out of this presentation. And thank you also to Jess for her presentation just before me on OpenDigCompEdu and Moodle Academy. And you're going to see some links between both presentations now in a moment. So without any further ado, I'll say Céad Míle Fáilte to you all, 100,000 welcomes to my presentation. What I want to cover in the next 20 minutes or so is just give you a little bit of background about myself, talk a little bit about the state of learning in the 21st century, and then I'm going to move on to discuss my community initiative that Sandra mentioned. MoodleMoot is what it's called. So just quickly about DCU, Dublin City University, where I work. It's a pretty young university. It's about 40 years old. It's situated primarily in North Dublin City, Dublin being the capital of Ireland. We have about 20,000 students and about 2,000 staff members. And we have 5 faculties: humanities and social sciences, engineering and computing, science and health, business and education. And we have a lot of links to industry, and we have a lot of innovative programs that prepare our students for the future workplace of the changing world. We've been a Moodle user since 2003, a very proud Moodle user. We strongly believe in the aims and objectives of the Moodle project, and we support it in every way we can. And we've also been a Mahara user, the Mahara portfolio platform. We've been using that for the past 6 years, and we have a very tight integration between Mahara and Moodle. And about my unit where I work, the Teaching Enhancement Unit, it is our Centre for Teaching and Learning in the university, and it's also part of our National Institute for Digital Learning, and that's a national institute that conducts research and provides leadership in the area of digital learning. My role is, and the role of my colleagues, is mainly to support on-campus teaching staff to develop their teaching practice, but we also have a role in maintaining and developing our ecosystem of learning technologies, of which Moodle is obviously at the heart, but we also use other tools like Mahara, as I mentioned, and Zoom and Original and Vvox and several other tools as well. And a core part of what we do is we provide professional development or professional learning for our educators, and we have a whole different range of supports, from very, very structured formal activities to much more informal collaborative activities to try and help our educators develop their teaching practice. And MoodleMoot, that I'm going to talk about today, is one of those professional learning opportunities. But what about learning in the 21st century? You know, I think it's fair to say that not just COVID and not just technology, but in general, there's been a shift in society and a shift in education as to how we conceive of the opportunities out there for our learners to learn. So in the 20th century, you know, when we think of learners going to learn, we very much think of them going to a formal provider, taking a curriculum, sitting in classes, taking examinations, receiving a certification and some credits and so on. But that's, you know, only one way of conceiving of learning, that formal mode. There is, of course, non-formal learning, so things like for example, in DCU, we have our marketing students who are taking a marketing program, might go off and do a short Google certificate in digital marketing with Google, you know, and that's a nice form of non-formal learning. So still structured, but often in different formats to a standard university program or module, and often leading to some form of recognition at the end, although not necessarily a credit-bearing recognition. And then, of course, there is informal learning, where we are learning through conversations, through dialogue, through working with one another, through self-paced study and exploration, and casting our net wide to the variety of resources out there. So when we think of those three modes, formal, non-formal, and informal, really, we are learning all the time, and our learners are learning all the time. They don't just come to a classroom and sit and learn. They are learning all the time, and that ubiquity really is facilitated a lot by technology, and how technology is so interwoven in our education systems at the moment. And that interweaving has been made even stronger, of course, because of the pandemic and our need to pivot to relying, you know, so heavily on technology to keep our education systems running. But also there's so many ambitious policies being set, for example, at EU level, the new Digital Education Action Plan. There are various national policies around digital learning, driving that digitization of our education systems, which is going to make I suppose the opportunities for learning across formal, non-formal, and informal even greater. So the future is definitely bright for our students. They have a world at their fingertips from which they can learn. But what about our educators? Okay, our educators are also learners themselves. Our educators need to stay up to date with teaching practice, with digital technologies, so that their practice can remain cutting edge and so that they can continue to deliver the best educational experience to our students. So very much in my work, working in the teaching enhancement unit in DCU, my students are lecturers, they are professors, they are educators, constantly coming and trying to learn and develop their practice. But how can they develop their digital teaching and learning practices? What opportunities are there for them? What can help them get on that road to becoming an even better digitally competent educator? Jess has already shown you the DigCompEdu framework and talked about the OpenDigCompEdu program. And this is a fantastic roadmap for our educators in working out what they need to learn and develop, what skills they need to improve upon in order to keep the learning experience of our students at the cutting edge. And we're increasingly using DigCompEdu in our professional learning offerings in DCU, and I know various other institutions and universities are. And actually, I'd be very interested to hear from you folks. Please do let me know in the chat if any of you are using DigCompEdu to organise your professional development opportunities for your lecturers. So this is a really key document and framework to help guide us in keeping our educators up to date. And our educators, much like students, can avail of formal, non-formal and informal opportunities to grow and develop. So some of them might undertake a master's in digital education. Some of them may get very involved in, asking questions and searching and getting involved in social media and looking up answers and trying to problem solve things for themselves, inhabiting that informal space. But increasingly we're seeing an increase in non-formal opportunities. So things like Jess mentioned, Moodle Academy is a good example of non-formal learning, where it's structured and there's set content and activities for people to go through, and they can get a recognition at the end. There's so many seminars and webinars available, and short courses and opportunities for people to come together at conferences and so on. And all these wonderful non-formal learning opportunities are proving excellent for our educators to develop their skill. And another example of things that are really burgeoning in recent years, as Sandra mentioned, is this idea of communities and communities of learners coming together to develop their practice even further. When we think of communities in education, we often think of communities of practice, which is a concept developed by Lave and Wenger in the 1980s, and they define communities of practice as a group of people who share a concern or a passion for something, and as they interact, they get better at their passion or at their concern. And the kinds of activities involved in communities of practice would be things like solving problems, seeking and sharing experience, discussing developments, and so on. We also have communities of interest, which is another type of community, which is perhaps less involved than a community of practice. And in a community of interest, there is the purpose is to be informed, just to kind of learn, or maybe kind of get answers to some questions and so on, to improve their understanding. But they're not necessarily trying to advance the domain knowledge or try to kind of solve problems that you might find in a community of practice. What are some of the benefits of communities? They're obviously very useful for developing professional knowledge, and our educators need professional knowledge in order to be able to do their jobs effectively, because they are ultimately a profession. They are members of the education profession. They have common experiences, common expertise, and so on. So they need to engage in professional learning. But to engage in professional learning, they need time to do that. They need resources, and they need the professional learning to be linked to their own practice. So communities obviously can serve those needs for developing professional knowledge. Communities can also respond much quicker to the needs of its members than a formal learning provider. So I think COVID is a fantastic example of that. As Sandra mentioned, all these communities blossomed during the time of COVID because people suddenly had to learn very, very quickly how to teach online, and they didn't have time to go and find a course and enroll in a course and take a 6-week course or a semester-long course or what have you. They needed to learn very, very quickly. Communities really helped fill that gap. And MoodleMoot is one of those communities, and it was actually, although I had conceived of the idea before COVID, it really came into its own in 2020. And I think it serves a really good purpose, particularly for users of Moodle, because Moodle has such an open source community spirit at its heart. And we see things like MoodleMoots, like today's MoodleMoot and the global Moot coming up. Those are fantastic opportunities for learning and sharing practice and helping one another in developing professional learning and so on. But those MoodleMoots obviously only happen every few months, and there really was an opportunity to bridge a gap in people's learning in between attending moots, and this is where the idea of MoodleMoot was born. So a kind of a light touch, non-formal learning opportunity for educators to continue developing their practice in between larger conference events. So we've run 3 series of community events since 2020. I kind of brought together some institutions in Ireland that use Moodle and working through our national forum as well, trying to spread the word and get people together to kind of form a foundation for this community, which we then promote very extensively through networks in Ireland and the UK and globally. How are our community events structured? We run regular lunchtime webinars. You can see there's a very much a food motif running through with MoodleMoot. It's a lunchtime learning session. It's held over Zoom. Each session contains 2 presentations where somebody shares some sort of practice around digital teaching and learning with Moodle, or something they're doing with Moodle and related technologies. And then there's a lot of Q&A, a lot of discussion afterwards. And there's great learning that happens in that Q&A and discussion element. We record the sessions, we circulate the material afterwards, and they're all available on our website for you folks to go and take a look at. It's aligned to od..Compedu, as I already said, so very important that we have a kind of a roadmap or structure for our MoodleMoot events. And you can see on screen there our webinars to date have focused on various different aspects of the od.Compedu framework around assessment, teaching and learning, digital resources, etc. So that framework is a fantastic roadmap for us. Types of things we've covered to date, talking about teaching with Moodle. We've talked a lot about universal design, about H5P, talked a lot about assessments, gamification, learning analytics, loads of really pertinent and important topics for educators to learn about in order to develop their own practice. We mainly have, most of our members are from Ireland and Britain, obviously, because that's our initial network here in Ireland. But we do have a growing European membership. We have a lot of members from Poland, Greece, Italy, Sweden, Spain, hopefully Croatia. We might get some members joining us. We have some global members as well from North America, Canada, and the United States, and so on. So it's great to see the community grow and develop over time. I think it's important to really understand the impact of the professional learning opportunities that we coordinate, and we're very research focused in my university and in my department. So it's always been very important for me to ask the question: what is the impact of MoodleMoot? Is MoodleMoot actually helping people to learn and develop their practice? So in March, I conducted an evaluation of our 3rd series of MoodleMoot community events. I sent out an anonymous questionnaire to all those who attended, and you can see there I got about a 22% response rate, which I was quite happy with. So what did I ask the people? Well, first of all, I asked where did our members work, and you can see overwhelmingly most of our members come from the higher education sector, some from the further education sector, and then some from the secondary education or the NGO sector. I didn't have any respondents from the primary sector, but I suppose that's not too surprising. I don't think Moodle has much of a presence in the primary education system. I asked them, did they find following the webinars was easy? Was it easy to follow what was going on? And you can see the majority of people there strongly agreeing, saying it was very easy to follow what was happening in the webinars. I think that's really important. I really want MoodleMoot to be accessible, because there's a broad spectrum of people attending. There's educators, there's administrators, there's some developers there, etc. So it's very important that everyone can follow along with what's being said. People really enjoyed, as you can see, the fact that there's 2 presentations in each webinar, giving people a flavour of practice out there with Moodle. People find it's very, very relevant, agreeing or strongly agreeing in most cases that they find the content is relevant to their contexts. A lot of people obviously saying they learn new things. This is really important. Going back to that idea of impact, are people learning from MoodleMoot? It seems yes, people are learning new things, which is wonderful to see. Wonderful to see as well, a lot of people here strongly agreeing that their practice has improved as a result of participating in MoodleMoot. Do have a sizable percentage there who are on the fence. Maybe their practice hasn't improved just yet. And again, of course, practice takes time. And just because someone attends, say, for example, one webinar doesn't automatically mean they've improved. They need their own time. Going back to that idea of professional learning, they need their own time to practice and develop and so on, and put their new things into practice. Communities are noted as being really good at giving people access to resources where they can kind of learn and they can develop from. And it's great to see most people here agreeing or strongly agreeing that MoodleMoot has given them access to resources where they can learn more. So that's great to see, because that's a great benefit of communities. However, to a lesser extent, do people feel like the MoodleMoot has helped them forge or strengthen relationships with others? You can see the majority of people there are on the fence around that. And that's quite interesting, because in a community of practice, very much people learn from working with one another and developing relationships. Although in a community of interest, it's less about relationships and it's more about just kind of learning or obtaining information or getting your answers and so on. So perhaps we're seeing here, for some people, MoodleMoot is a community of interest, and maybe for some people, MoodleMoot is a community of practice where they're more involved. And that kind of plays out in our next question here, where a lot of people saying, yes, they feel part of a MoodleMoot community, but there is a sizable portion there who are a bit neutral around that. So maybe there's a bit more work for me to do to kind of encourage that community spirit and helping people forge relationships with one another. And how can we do that? Well, there's a lot more topics they want to cover. They want to learn more about learning analytics, they want more on assessment, more on UDL, more on plugins and integrations and so on. So there's a lot of appetite out there to learn much more about Moodle, and hopefully MoodleMoot can fill that need, because people do find the bite-sized approach of MoodleMoot is good and how focused it is, and it's very good for novice users to learn, and they're always learning something new, and it's giving them new perspectives on Moodle, which again is the benefit of a community and the benefit of diverse voices coming together to share practice and collaborate with one another. Is you get this sharing of perspectives and this sharing of new learnings. Good. Where are we going next with MoodleMoot? Well, I'm currently planning Series 4, which will run from October to February, so keep an eye out for that. I'll announce the lineup during the summer. You can join our mailing list if you want to learn more about MoodleMoot at bit.ly/MoodleMoot-mailing. If any of you are interested in presenting something of yours at MoodleMoot, we would be absolutely delighted to have you on board to make a presentation. So you can log your interest there at that hyperlink. And again, if you're interested in learning at all about MoodleMoot, you can find all of our details and information on our website at dc.ie/MoodleMoot. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Rob. Very interesting presentation. Certainly, we saw that during pandemic, it was very good to have such communities where people could gather and see that they are not alone and there are others struggling with the same issues as them. Are you planning to stay online, or now as times are better, do you plan to go face to face?
Question, because initially when I had the idea for MoodleMoot, it was before COVID, and I had thought, I would organize some webinars initially, but then have some in-person events as well. But that was because initially I thought MoodleMoot would only reach maybe the people in Ireland, but we saw, MoodleMoot is growing internationally, and I'm very passionate about keeping it open and keeping it accessible. So I think for the future anyway, I'll keep organising it online using webinars, because I feel if I were to move to an in-person event, that might exclude some people from participating. That would kind of go against the ethos of MoodleMoot. But we'll wait and see. At least in the near future, we're going to stay online with our webinars.
Yeah, I agree. Online enables you to have a wider audience, ability for others to participate as well. And my second question is, I've been doing lots of initiatives relating to the communities, and after some time, people get tired. The first, first they're enthusiastic, they are eager, and after some time, they tend to find it. I would not say it's not interesting anymore, but they know it exists. It's there. They heard lots of topics, and they are not so much engaged anymore. Are you afraid that this will happen to your initiative?
Necessarily, because I think at the end of the day, a community of learning exists to fulfill the needs of its members. And if its members have come and they participate, and if they learn and if they move on, well, then the community has served its purpose, And I have noted, for example, a lot of the members who attended in the early series, they're less frequently attending now, and they've obviously learned a lot of stuff and they're moving on. But we are getting new members in as time goes on as well, so it's keeping up the membership and keeping up the engagement. So it remains to be seen, the community exists to fulfill a need, and as it fulfills the needs and as it helps people learn and grow and develop, if engagement wanes, if membership wanes, so be it. That's the natural course of things. But for the moment, engagement is high and membership is high, and there's definitely a role for it in the near future. But I think as regards all of these communities that have grown during COVID, it kind of remains to be seen where we all go. I think in the future.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to say it's very, very good that you established such initiative and it's working. I have did something similar with Eden during the pandemic with the webinars online together. But also here at Srce, we did some events before, which were very good for some time, but the idea about these events for time ceased to fulfill the expectations, and that naturally they were not longer needed. But I'm certainly hoping that we will discuss this issue of communities further. This is very interesting topic to me, and I see some possibilities for collaboration in here. But we are coming to the end of your presentation. So thank you once again for joining us to be part of MoodleMoot Croatia for the 12th year now in the row. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Sandra, thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ok, evo, vraćamo se na hrvatski. Evo, završili smo sa našim pozvanim predavanjima koje smo imali i sad krećemo ponovo u 2 sesije. Znači, imamo ovu sobu i onu drugu sobu. Evo, pogledajte u programu šta vas zanima, tako da dio vas koji će ostati ovdje, a dio će se preseliti u drugu sobu. Evo, prepuštam kolegama koji moderiraju ove sesije. Evo, doviđenja.